God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Finley's Friendly Appliances. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
He will.
He will. He will, in fact.
We heard it uttered in this episode
we
again.
Did, but we heard it in a very loving way.
Yes, we did.
Yes, so this is Season 1, Episode 21 of Maude, The Perfect Marriage.
And who are we?
I don't know who we are. This is episode, 22? This is episode 20... This is episode 21, either 22 or 23 of God'll Get You for That, Walter. And we still haven't figured out a routine on how to start this episode.
I know, but that's okay.
It's my fault.
It's fine with me.
I am Tomcat.
Oh, thank God. I wasn't sure for a minute.
And I am joined by, who are you?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Maybe you're Sophia Petrollo today.
Maybe Sophia, Tony, who knows? I'm Toni Homeperm.
Thank God. As long as you know who you are, I know who I am.
I do. So,
this is episode 21.
21.
Season 1 of Maude, entitled The Perfect Marriage. And when did it air?
It originally aired March 13th,
1973.
A lot of threes.
Yes.
3, 13, and 73.
And who's our special guest in this episode?
William Redfield.
Who plays who?
Who plays Chuck.
Do you love the fact that I'm asking all these questions
I know.
and I have them written down right here?
What was their last name?
Chuck Cavender.
Chuck Cavender. Vivian's husband.
Vivian's husband.
And William Redfield. We've already seen him.
We've seen him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And on Maude.
He played Dr. Stern in the pilot episode of Maude.
Yeah, Maude's
he played the psychiatrist.
He was the psychiatrist, the shrink. And yes, he did. He was in a lot of movies. He was in, as you said, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Fantastic Voyage,
Fantastic Voyage, which is, I told you,
one of my
favorite sci-fi movies.
Yes,
with Raquel Welch. I love when it's about they shrink a submarine down to microscopic size and inject it into this government person who's they tried to assassinate him.
Of course they did.
And I love when Raquel Welch, she went swimming in the bloodstream and the white corpuscles attacked her. One of my all-time favorite scenes. But I digress.
It's so sad you don't see a lot of Raquel Welch lately.
No.
You do see her wigs.
Her wigs!
You see her wigs, her glasses, because she did the Foster Grants. But unfortunately, you know what? I truly believe that Myra Breckenridge ruined her career.
Yeah.
Boosted Mae West's ruined Raquel Welch's career.
It did. And she was mean to Farrah Fawcett Majors.
She was very mean to her.
And
she was mean to Mae West. How can you be mean to Mae West of all people?
But I don't think she was as mean to Mae West as she was to Farrah Fawcett, because she couldn't really get away with it with Mae West. But Farrah Fawcett was a young ingenue at the time.
Yes, she was.
They kept changing Farrah Fawcett's hairdo. I remember Farrah Fawcett, her hair color.
Really?
Because Mae West was like, she's too blonde, make it darker.
Yep.
Then Raquel would see
it's
it.
Too dark, make it lighter.
It's got to be lighter. So she said her hair was fried. Her hair was fried, which is funny because she's so
well known
for that hairdo, and the
Farrah do.
Yes, and then that first movie, her hair got fried. So, fun facts.
Myra Breckenridge. What an interesting bit of queer cinema.
Yes.
But anyway, we're here to talk about Maude.
The Perfect Marriage. So, we start with the living room is dark, and Walter and Maude and Vivian and Chuck all enter together.
In the most
hideous
matching
outfits. We need those for like a Dorothy Sophia thing.
We do. Oh, absolutely.
We do.
So Maude and Walter enter in these purple and orange tropical outfits.
Yes.
Like Walter and Chuck are in like these Harry Belafonte t-shirts, these button-ups.
They were like those like Hawaiian shirts.
The Hawaiian button-ups.
And Walter's was like bluish purple, and his shirt that Maude had the dress in the same pattern, and same with Chuck and Vivian.
Chuck and Vivian were in gold.
They were, yes,
orange.
Yes.
And just I want that outfit of Maude so bad. And that is actually one of the only times, like, you really see Maude wear anything cleavage revealing.
Yeah.
Because she never wore anything that showed off her chest.
Yes.
But we actually have a joke about that.
Oh, we do?
We do.
Oh, that's right, we do.
They enter singing Matilda. Which was...
Matilda.
Chicky Chicky Boom Boom.
Matilda.
She take me money and run Venezuela. They are having the time of their life. You know, you wonder if they did that from the plane.
From where?
From the airport. Just singing Matilda.
Probably. It would not surprise me.
And they're like shaking maracas and playing with these instruments.
Yes, and they start doing the limbo.
Yes.
And Chuck feigns
hurting his back. And Walter was the one who grabbed the umbrella. So Vivian went under first.
Right.
Then Chuck, who hurt his back. And then they were all like, come on, Maude, you gotta go under.
That's when the joke comes in.
Maude says, trim ship with big stack, can't go under low bridge, man.
That's right. And of course, they had just all gotten back from a trip
to Jamaica.
From Jamaica.
They just came back from Jamaica.
Yes.
And we also find out that Walter has a unique belly button.
Yes, it's
because he starts undoing his shirt to impersonate.
I know. Well, as we've said before, Walter, Bill
has
Macy,
no problem. Bill Macy had no problem showing skin.
Very comfortable with nudity because as
which is hysterical because
he was in Old Calcutta, which everybody was naked on stage, live audience. So.
But it's amusing to me because B. Arthur was very prudish.
Mm-hmm.
She did not like revealing her curves. She liked being comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to be paired with Bill Macy, who's very comfortable it's just fascinating.
I know. Funny.
Just very fascinating.
Funny. Let me ask a quick question. How did B. Arthur and Bill Macy get along as off-screen? Do we know? I was just thinking about that, and I'm curious.
I remember watching a couple of interviews where I think that they professionally they spoke very highly of each other. Mm-hmm. Professionally, they spoke very highly of each other. I do not know. It was almost. I don't want to say it was the same thing as B. Arthur and Betty White. It was not. It was not. It was not that. I don't think B. Arthur held that much resentment toward Bill Macy. Mm-hmm. But Bill Macy was in a category all of his own. Mm-hmm. I think when the show ended, I think Bill was a little resentful. Only because, so when Maude ended, Norman Lear tried to get another show off the ground that sort of followed the way Maude ended. So the way Maude ended, I mean, of course, we're going to discuss this at the penultimate episode. Maude ended with Maude being in, I think, either a secretary in Congress or a congresswoman. Mm-hmm. One of the two. And what they were going, like, they had a beautiful cast. They had, I can't remember their names, but obviously we'll get to that when we get to that. Mm-hmm. But it was going to be brand new. Vivian, Arthur, Carol, Philip, they all moved. They all moved away, so it was just Maude and Walter, and the maid, and a secretary for Maude, and two secretaries for Maude. Okay. So it was just going to be a completely new series almost. Right. But B. Arthur decided it's time to move on to greener pastures. It was time. Gotcha. Norman Lear wanted to continue that. Mm-hmm. So it was very similar to what happened with Golden Palace. Mm-hmm. But it just the new series starred Bill Macy in the Maude role. So it was Bill Macy playing a congressman with those two same secretaries. Mm-hmm. But it only lasted, I think, 4 or 5 episodes.
Really?
They
I gotta look that up.
I completely and totally forgot what the name of it was. Okay.
We'll find out.
But that was what ended up happening. But otherwise, I think that again, professionally, their relationship they had a very good working relationship.
Good to know. So we find out that as Walter's taking the shirt off, Chuck and Vivian are
trying to figure out whether he has an innie or an outie.
And then he finally shows it, and Chuck says that
it's both.
It's both. It's a half innie, half outie.
And Maude calls it a unique C.
A unique C, yes. Yes, and they're saying how this has been one of their best vacations.
And they've been on 5 vacations together.
Yes.
But they've been on 5 vacations since Maude married Walter.
Yes.
It's also fun to point out, we never know who Vivian's first husband is.
Oh,
because if you remember in Maude's dilemma, like Maude says to Vivian, we've been through an awful lot together. 6 husbands, you're 2, my 4.
Oh, that's right.
But I think we're sort of led to believe that Chuck was her first husband.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Because, we actually... So, we'll continue, because we'll get to that in a moment. So we find out that this is the first of 5 vacations.
Yes.
And the first vacation they went on was in Las Vegas, where the men went to go golf, and the women went gambling, and they lost their shirts.
Right.
Their second vacation was in the Virgin Islands. And how nice is it to be able to go on a vacation every year?
Oh, I don't know.
How nice is that? I remember years ago, it was my family was able to financially go on a vacation every year. Right. And then at some point it just stopped. Right. Where they, there was only so many places we could go. Right. And it's just fascinating to be able to say, when was the last time I went on a vacation? What is a vacation? What is a vacation?
I don't know anymore. I don't know. So, I tend to find going away to someplace strange, for me, is not really a vacation. I find it too stressful. So I'd rather just vacate at home.
Yes.
So that's me. That's me, And I'm okay.
I get it.
I don't want to leave my cats.
Oh, you don't want to leave me, Ma?
No. Pussycat. All right. So third vacation was Hawaii.
The third vacation was Hawaii, where Chuck got sick on the cruise.
Yes, and he up-chucked.
Literally up-chucked. When Vivian said up-chuck, when Vivian said up-chuck, he did.
He did. And then Chuck brought up that Albert was a creep.
Was a real creep.
Yes, Maude's...
which leads one to believe that...
Former husbands.
Before Walter was Albert, before Albert was Chester, and before Chester was Barney. That I think that was what became the norm in the script. It became like Barney was Maude's first husband, then Barney died. Okay. And Chester and her divorced. Then Maude married Albert for only, I think, 7 or 8 months. Right. It wasn't.
Chester was Carol's father, right?
Barney was Carol's father.
Barney was Carol's father.
Yes. Okay. There's actually an episode where I think it's literally called Maude and Chester.
Oh, okay.
But we'll get to that.
Confusing.
Very confusing.
Yes.
But hey, they made it work somehow.
So, Vivian and Chuck,
they're left alone because Maude and Walter are going into the kitchen to get salami.
No, but wasn't it bologna?
No, I think it was salami.
Was it salami?
I think it was salami.
Bologna.
Don't.
It was some form of luncheon meat.
Some type of luncheon meat.
I don't know who. And it's late at night. Who's eating luncheon meat salami that late at night?
At midnight.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would have Nutella at midnight.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I have dessert at midnight.
Nutella.
Sometimes I also have pizza. It depends on how hungry I am.
Okay. Sometimes, you get up and you just open the refrigerator and you look at something and it's cold, but you're like, who cares? I'm not reheating it, and you just take a bite. So luncheon meat.
So some type of luncheon meat.
There you go.
Some type of cold cuts.
Vivian and Chuck are
Chuck says how great the 4 are.
Yes.
Albert was a first class nothing. And then Vivian and Chuck are sort of like praising each other throughout the entirety of the trip. Like, I mean, Vivian even says, like, you were the Rock of Gibraltar. What would I would have done on our wedding night?
Yeah, yes.
And Chuck jokes saying, not very much, I hope.
Right, yeah. And, yes, they're very, appreciative and
loving and caring
of each other.
And I think he goes on to like praise himself, saying like, I'm this, I'm that, and I have a highly developed sense of modesty.
Right. They're telling each other how much they love each other. And that's when they say...
That's when Viv says, when do you think we should tell Maude and Walter we're getting a divorce?
Yeah, which is like totally out of left field.
Very out of left field. But I think that's what makes the joke work.
Absolutely.
That's obviously what makes the joke work.
Now, I've got to say, for a couple that's getting divorced, to have seen them, partying and laughing and
singing and
praising
dancing
each other. Because I was divorced from my first marriage. I was married to a woman.
Yes.
And let me tell you, it was not like that at all. Not at all. No siree.
I can only imagine. Only imagine.
The stories I could tell, we don't have enough time in it to go through
Not
it.
enough time in the hour.
Yeah, let's just say I was like, well, that was nothing like what I experienced.
But I mean, towards the end of the episode, maybe it was a little bit similar.
Yes, things do take a turn. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a moment.
We'll get to that.
So then they start to say how much they absolutely hate each other.
Yes,
like how they've had it up to here
with
each
other.
And then I think at that point we cut to
back to the kitchen.
Back to the kitchen with Maude and Walter. Just they start praising each other, and they're like, "Wow, how nice to have friends like Vivian and Chuck who are in this beautiful, beautiful, perfect marriage."
Yes, they have the perfect marriage.
They have the perfect. Well, that's the name of the episode.
The perfect marriage. And there was a funny bit about Walter kind of wanted to take Maude on the dishwasher.
Yes, that did happen. That was a joke where I think that was before they went into the kitchen, where Maude was talking to Chuck and Viv, saying Maude usually takes me on the oh god, what was the portable dishwasher? Very amorous, those two.
Yes,
good for them being as amorous as they were.
Yes. I lost my place.
Well, Walter ends up saying that Chester, Barney, and Albert all had outsies.
Yes.
Because he was pointing out how, how since Maude and Walter have been together, their outings have been good. Their outings have been fairly decent.
Right. And I have something. Walter wanted. He then wanted to call Arthur.
Yes, Walter. So they come back inside with the salami or the luncheon meat.
The luncheon meat.
And then at that point, that's when Walter says, "Oh, let me call Arthur." And Maude is pretty upset.
Yes,
but I mean, if you came back from a vacation with your husband, would you want to call your best friend to say, "Hey, I'm home"? Especially at midnight.
No.
You'd wait until the morning.
If anything, I might just send a text.
Yeah, a
text.
That.
Sure, I wouldn't call.
Correct.
No, this is
the 21st century.
Nobody calls.
No one calls anymore.
It's like, you call someone and they're like, "Why are you calling me? Why didn't you text me? Couldn't you have done this in a DM?"
This could have been an email.
Why do we have to speak?
So, yes, Maude ends up saying...
You even send me, audio texts.
I do. I'll sometimes send you audio messages.
You send me audio texts.
I mean, honestly, it's just a lot easier.
I don't know how to do it.
You still have no idea?
I don't know.
You just go into Messenger and you hold the little microphone.
Too much work.
You can even tap it and it'll record what you say.
I'd rather just type.
Old woman, you're an old woman.
That's true.
From one old woman to another, you're an old woman.
I know.
So Maude is a little perturbed because she's like, "Why are you calling Walter? Why does Walter need to know where you are? Why are you calling Arthur?
Why are you calling Arthur?"
See, again,
I know. We always confuse them.
They had to have similar sounding names.
Yes. So I think was it Maude or Walter that wanted to
Walter wants to go
next vacation spot.
Both of them were deciding.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were deciding.
And Vivian and Chuck, they want to wait a while.
Yes, they do want to wait.
They want to wait. So Maude and Walter start thinking that maybe they're cheating on them, that they're interested in another couple to go vacationing with.
Of course. I mean, wouldn't you feel that way?
Yes.
I would feel devastated.
Absolutely. So I have something that I jotted down about trading in the old jalopy for new.
Yes. So, okay, hold on. Before we even get to that. Chuck and Viv say that they have an announcement.
Yes.
Which then triggers Walter to say, you're trading in your old jalopy for a new one.
Yes, that's what
And Maude's like, is it something the two of us can do?
Right.
Obviously, creating more laughs for the audience.
Yes.
Again, very, very well written. Like, yes. I enjoy double entendres. Like
I love a good double entendre.
We love a good double entendre.
Love it.
So... Maude and Walter are like, oh my goodness, you're going to adopt a kid. You're going to adopt a baby together. And at that point, Vivian turns to Maude and goes, no, Chuck and I are getting a divorce. And Maude is not hearing anything.
She doesn't believe it.
She's like, no, come on, Walter, what could they possibly be doing together? Like, and
Maude
Vivian
doesn't believe it.
Vivian is like relenting, saying, no, I mean, I'm serious, we're getting a divorce. And Maude says, I know, I'd rather have the hint.
Right.
And then Maude, I think, starts, grabbing the maracas and starts singing Matilda.
She starts singing Matilda again. She won't believe it, but then she finally...
She says, I'd put my stake on everything that you and Chuck were never going to get a divorce.
Right.
And then she says, I'd lose my assets, wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love when they use words like that too, of course. I mean, ass, like assets, ass. It just makes my heart happy.
And Walter, I believe he was the one, he was like, well, when did you decide this? Because... He mentioned something about when they were on vacation in Jamaica that the walls were paper thin.
Maude said the walls were paper thin. They were deliriously happy. Obviously they were enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, even though they're planning on getting a divorce, they're still,
still have carnal desires.
Talk about, spouse with benefits, I guess. It's not friends with benefits. It's a spouse with benefits.
Married with benefits.
Married with benefits.
So then we find out that they just simply can't make it as a couple anymore.
Right.
They've reached their end.
Yes. And I had something written down about, they mentioned Kodachrome. Kodachrome, yes, the film. Remember, that was what people used to use, that was camera film, was called Kodachrome.
Oh, to have the film developed.
Yes.
Like, wait until the pictures come back.
Yeah, can you at least wait until the pictures were developed? It was something to do with that.
Yes.
Because back then, cameras had actual film, and you didn't see the pictures until you actually took the film out and got it developed.
Anecdotal. For my sister's Sweet 16, we had those Polaroids, and you would twist the and you would take pictures. We still have cameras that have undeveloped film in it.
Oh, jeez.
And my mother wants to go and get the film developed.
Sure.
Because, number one, there are pictures of her mother in it.
Oh.
And
wow.
That's significant. To those unawares, yes, that is significant because my grandmother passed away this year.
Right.
So obviously she would want to have those pictures developed. There's family members, there's friends, there's memories there.
She should get them developed. She really should. Or just take them and bring them over to CVS.
Yeah, literally.
They'll
just have them do it.
Yeah, they do it. Do it.
So that's what Maude suggests. It's like, wait until the film's developed.
Yes. And I thought it was... I thought it was interesting that they said Kodachrome, because that's also an old Paul Simon song. Kodachrome, give us those nice bright colors. Remember that?
No,
it's a song. It was a hit in the 70s.
I wasn't alive in the 70s.
I know that, but
there was actually I saw on Facebook, as a matter of fact, someone said it was from 1976 and it was the top 40s with Casey Kasem.
Mm-hmm.
There were songs that I'm just like, oh my god, these were released in the 70s.
Yeah.
These are actual songs that were released in the 70s. Wow.
Excuse me.
So, showing my age, you showing your age. We're all showing our ages.
It's a great Paul Simon song, though, Kodachrome.
I'll have to look into it.
Yes. When you hear it, you'll probably recognize it.
More than likely. So, I would not be surprised.
So, they're, Chuck and Vivian are saying they still like each other.
They just bore each other to death.
They just can't stand to be with each other.
Yes. And then they I think Maude and Walter ended up saying we thought that you Chuck and Viv were the perfect couple.
Right.
And then, Viv and Chuck were like, oh, well, we used to say the same thing about you guys.
Yeah.
Which triggers Maude.
Yes.
I mean, this is definitely an episode where we obviously see Maude in her truest form.
Yeah,
which
Maude gets very triggered.
Very triggered.
She's very triggered in this episode. She runs the gamut of emotions.
Yes, she does. All over the place. I mean, that just shows what a brilliant actress PR is.
Yeah, she really was. I mean, it was a tour de force.
Yes.
Of emotional display.
So I think
Vivian and Chuck
end up leaving. Yes.
So Maude and Walter are alone, and Maude just cannot.
She said it was a match made in heaven.
Match made in heaven.
And Walter makes a joke. Maybe it should have been made in Japan, like everything else.
Right.
I thought that was such a stupid joke.
Yeah. Well, that was a big thing back then. Like, they would. It was a running joke in a lot of shows that, you know, somebody would look at something and be like, oh, made in Japan or made in Hong Kong, signifying that something was of cheap quality. Yeah. If they said made in Japan, made in Hong Kong.
And now look at
us. Which is not the case.
And now look
anymore.
At us. We have MAGA hats that have made in China on it.
I know.
Who would have thunk?
We now look at that kind of thing as being very Asian phobic.
Very much so.
So
very, very, very much
so. It's not something somebody
But again, you know, one of the things that I want us to do on the show is to definitely point out, like, the age from which these episodes have aired. Like, this was in 73.
Yes.
And we're almost 50 years out from that.
Yes.
So, oh my God, it's so awful to say.
I know.
That literally,
I've heard. How could you be so evil to me? How could you just stab me in the back?
Let me tell you something.
Twist the knife. How could you?
Listen, every time I see those like memes of like the PS2 came out 20 years ago, I'm like, no, it didn't. It did not come out 20 years ago. That's a lie.
I had the original Atari.
I was going to say Atari or ColecoVision.
With like there was just the ball. and the ball that went like bink, 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 bink. Bing, bing, across, you hooked it up to your TV.
There was Pong and there was, Snake?
There wasn't even Snake, what I had.
It was the one that, like, you follow the little dot.
Didn't even have that. I had the original Atari. Basically, all it did, it was like, the two, like, dial controllers for one person and the other person.
Yeah.
And it just moved the bars up and down on the sides, and you hit that ball. And you played. It was like ping pong or tennis.
It was literally called Pong.
Yes,
that was the official name of the video game.
Yes, and and if you left it on and forgot about it, you could ruin your TV screen. It could burn like the game image on the TV screen. Yeah. Little known fact.
I'm agog. I'm aghast right now.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly what's happening with my phone.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, I'm on my phone. I'm on my phone constantly. So it's like if you can even. I don't know if you can see because of your eyes.
I can see,
but look at the top.
I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just.
Oh, wow.
Technology, we've come so far, and the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Right.
So
Walter is not really shocked.
He says marriage is like a new pair of shoes.
Like a new pair of shoes.
And Maude, I love when Maude comes back at him with his little sayings.
Yes.
I think she
said, he says only the person wearing them knows how much it hurt. They hurt.
Boy, what insight.
Yes.
How can you compare a broken marriage to a pair of tight hush puppies?
Hush puppies. Fun fact, I had hush puppies.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I had
hush puppies were in the 70s, and then Keds were in the 80s.
And I had, even before the hush puppies, I had Buster Browns.
Oh my God.
Yes. I've always had a wide foot. So I know the feeling. My parents and my grandmother, as a kid, I could only get shoes from Stride Right. That was the kids' shoe store.
Yes, that was still the kids' shoe store when I was young.
Because only Stride Right had shoes wide enough for my frickin' wide foot. It's still a problem. Even for my drag shoes, I have to use like a shoe stretcher and stretch, everything out.
Couldn't you just get a half a size higher or a size higher?
I do. It's still,
Oh wow.
Because I like pretty shoes.
And then there's me with my friggin' dwarf feet, looking like something out of Lord of the Damn Rings. And I have to settle for size 16.
We'll call you Tom Frodo.
God will get you for that. God will get you for that, Tony. So they argue because Maude is obviously very insecure.
Yeah. So now she gets it in her head about Walter not wanting to be alone with her.
Because over the course of the vacation, the four of them were inseparable.
They were inseparable. Yes. And
Walter's trying to be logical, where it's like, why are we having this argument? Mm-hmm. It's late. I want to go to bed. You're being small, petty, and insecure. And Maude, of course, is like, so everything now that I say is small, petty, and insecure. Right. How dare you?
Right. And I believe Walter still wanted to call Arthur.
Yes.
And I have a note here about Maude. She felt now that the vacation was rotten now, that it was ruined.
When before they were just singing, happy, and dancing.
So till dark.
Yes. So now because of that, because of what Chuck and Viv told them, it's like, well, because of that, the whole trip was worthless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're going on a trip with people and then you end up coming back and it wasn't as picture perfect as you thought, would you, like, say you go on a vacation with somebody and then you come back and you find out something like awful, would you still discount the vacation despite the happy memories that you made?
I probably would.
That's because you're petty, small, and insecure.
Exactly.
And you're right, I would do the same thing.
And I'm half Italian and half Jewish, and that's the way I roll.
And that's the way.
That's a typical Italian Jewish. It'd be like, you've ruined the whole vacation.
Ruined the whole vacation.
You've ruined the whole vacation. That's a typical Italian Jewishy kind of thing. One little thing can destroy the world.
Everything.
All it takes is one little thing.
All it takes is one little flick of the domino to everything just come crashing down.
Yes, exactly. So Maude is worried about.
She doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be a 47-year-old swinging single.
I would give anything to be a 47-year-old swinging single again.
I don't want to be 47. I don't want to be 37. I didn't even want to be 27, for Christ's sake.
I know.
So Maude wants to be alone with Walter. Walter wants to go to bed. So Maude wants to argue naturally. Because of course she does.
Of course, she's accusing Walter of running away from their problems. And she says that they can't go to sleep, with all these, before they've resolved this.
I'm trying to remember what the cue line was for this, but we end up coming to probably one of the funniest lines in the entire series, with Walter basically saying to Maude, "I have never, but never felt you beneath me."
Oh yes,
and the camera goes from Walter saying that, like, I want to even say it gets a close-up of Maude's face.
Yes, it did.
And B. Arthur, I adore
the look.
If looks could kill.
Like, the thing she was saying with just
her expression.
Just the expression. And the audience was
the audience was living for it. I think it was for like a 10 to 11 second laugh.
Yes. Oh, I know what it is. Maude was saying that they can't go to sleep with dirty dishes.
Yes, that's what it was.
So she's like grabbing the dishes.
Grabbing the dishes in the plate.
That had the luncheon meat.
To
bring them into the kitchen.
Yes.
So, and the fight was continuing in the kitchen, and again, we have Walter throwing dishes again.
Again, Walter. I mean, I want to ask this sincerely. Was
Please
there
do.
was there ever a point in time when your parents would physically throw something at each other? Be honest, because I'll be honest too.
My parents went way beyond just throwing things.
Oh, good.
Yes. I always likened my childhood sort of like I compared it to growing up somewhere in the Middle East where like, like the Gaza Strip or something like that.
It was that bad?
Oh, it was really bad.
Oh, wonderful.
Really bad. Police involved.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's happy.
Restraining orders.
These are happy memories.
It was nuclear. Nuclear. Yes.
Yeah. I laugh, but yeah. Uh-huh.
Which I think is how I developed such a creative imagination. Because
Yes.
I had to find a way to escape.
Yeah.
And the only place I could escape was in my mind.
Yes. That is 100% a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
That is a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations for even developing that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have had to.
Shouldn't have had to, but I feel it's a strength now.
Correct.
I mean, I've turned it into a strength.
Yes,
with a
you
lot
most
of the
certainly
things
have.
that I do.
100% you have.
So,
And I'm proud of you.
You know.
And I'm glad you're here.
what is it? The strongest steel is honed in the hottest fire.
Oh, that's brilliant. Would you hold those words? I want to go to my sewing basket and embroider them on a whoopee cushion. But no, I completely and totally agree. And I've been through similar. It never reached that point,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember when the boiler in my old house was on the fritz.
Oh.
And we were trying to, it was bad. To the point where the entire, carpet in the basement was soaked with incredibly warm water.
Oh.
They were trying to clean everything, and my parents were really just. It reached a point where my mother, years ago, I don't know if you did this, but years ago, one of the fun things to do with all of your group of friends was to go to a ceramic shop and paint ceramics.
My mother and I did that.
Yeah. So, we had a couple of those, hanging around the house.
Right.
For Lord knows whatever reason.
Yes.
And there was a Donald Duck that I painted
Uh-huh.
that my mother literally took and threw at my father.
Oh.
Yeah. It missed him.
She threw Donald Duck at
She
him?
threw Donald Duck at him. And those suckers are heavy.
Oh, yes.
Those suckers, I want to say, are a good at least 2-3 pounds. And if that hit
They weren't
you...
light. No, not by any means.
So I think that was probably one of the worser fights I've seen. Obviously the screaming and the screaming fights and the just...
And what happened to Donald?
Oh, Donald broke.
Oh.
Million bloody pieces.
Oh,
all the
poor
pieces. It's... My mother was... My mother is one of those people that is incredibly emotional. So if she breaks something that has sentimentality, she goes to pieces.
Oh.
So she was very upset. She's like, Thomas, I'm so sorry. I broke this. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm like, listen, it was said, it was thrown in the heat of the moment. What am I going to do?
Well,
it's just ceramic.
For some reason, all I can think of is, I'd rather you shot Lester.
I'd rather you shot Lester. You shot my mom.
Donald, I'd rather you shot Lester. Go on home, you old fool.
Hell's bells.
Yes.
Hell's bells.
Sometimes you just have to have a little Golden Girls overlap.
Of course we do. I mean, it's just...
I mean, you've got B. Arthur and Rue
McClanahan
in a show together.
Of
so.
course you do. And they've mentioned Betty White, I think, a few times on the show. I think Betty White was mentioned once or twice.
On Maude?
On Maude.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Okay.
So after that point, they're fighting in the kitchen.
And then Maude sort of breaks down, and she's almost in tears,
Yes.
and she's sitting at the table, and she's saying to Walter, "You must despise me." She's crying, and Walter starts telling her that he loves her. He says, "I love you more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow," which is that's a Stevie Wonder song.
I think so.
I love you more today.
They'll demonetize us.
They haven't even monetized us yet. What am I worried about?
All right, I'll remember that the next time I start singing something.
I think as long as you keep it under 10 seconds, we're okay.
Great.
It's got to be less than 10 seconds.
So Maude turns to Walter and says, "That's beautiful.
Yes.
If Shakespeare were alive, he wouldn't have written Romeo and Juliet. He would have written the Valachi Papers."
The Valachi Papers! Which I think was a movie about the mafia.
Yes.
The Valachi Papers.
Yes. So then, after the dust settles almost,
well, then they head back out into the living room,
and Maude suggests that they write down what they can't stand.
She wants to do something that they would do in group therapy.
This is
a group therapy exercise. And Walter's like, he wants to do it tomorrow, but Maude is insistent
that it's done tonight.
So they're supposed to. She gets paper, and they're going to write down things that they can't stand about each other.
Now, I do have to say, that does help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if ever you're in a very anxious thinking place, sit down with a pen and paper and just write everything out.
Yes.
And it's very, very helpful.
Yes.
I would not write something about my partner and then hand it to my partner.
No.
That's the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yes. But also, like, if you're feeling like a tremendous amount of anger, frustration, whatever, some strong emotion about somebody, but you don't really want to tell them, it's a great way to get those feelings out. Like, write it out.
Just write it out.
Write it out. It's amazing. I've done that. I've done that.
Same here.
And, like, I've done it like an email, and then just, like, I did it, and it was like...
And then delete it all.
And then just deleted it.
Yep.
And I was like... I got it out of my system,
and that's all you need to do.
And and then I just ghosted the person.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
Of course you did.
They made me do all that work, all that typing. They do that to me. Get me that frustrated. How dare they?
How dare you?
How dare they?
So they start writing things
Walter
down.
starts writing,
and he's emoting like he's just. And him doing that obviously triggers Maude because
she's trying to look like
Walter's like pushing all of her buttons.
It was like a kid in school trying to like look on somebody else's paper so they can cheat.
Yeah.
She wants to see what he wrote, and he's saying that he just wants to go to bed. And she's telling him that this is a problem that can't be solved horizontally. I've always found that a multitude of problems can be solved horizontally, personally.
That's because you're a whore.
Well, there is that.
No, I am of the mind. I've always been of the mind that yes, sex can help, but sex can also definitely be a hindrance.
Yes,
because you can only have so much sex. And when you look at a couple like Maude and Walter, they are very amorous with each other. Mm-hmm. You imagine that whenever they go to bed, there's definitely some fooling around.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Maude has actually told Vivian a number of times, like, "Oh, we have whoopee every night. We do it. We enjoy each other's company every night." And I'm like, how could you do it every night?
Yes, I don't know that.
I could not do that.
So an interesting fact about sex in the relationship.
Oh, here we go.
No, this is I found this to be quite true. A very good friend of mine, she had told me a long time ago that sex it's not everything in the relationship.
Yes,
but it is the barometer of the relationship.
Yes. It is sort of where yes. Mm-hmm.
So,
I grant you.
Not that it's the be all and end all of the relationship, but it is a telling fact of where the relationship is. Just throwing that out there.
Yep. So Walter starts emoting while he's writing. Maude breaks the pencil that Walter was writing with.
Yes.
So now she says, "Here, you can write down with three pencils."
Yes.
And he turns to Maude and goes, "What am I going to do with the third?"
Yes. And another great look from her.
Another great facial expression from
and the
her.
audience was hysterical.
Again, the audience
hysterical.
losing it.
What was he going to do with that third pencil? Kind of reminds me of the joke about the third leg.
But I mean, it was the same thing as like that, "Oh, can I get you something in Pine?"
Yes.
Because he made the joke about the tree, I think. I have to rewatch that episode.
Yes.
Jokes like that I love so much because it's like, you're going to stick it up your behind is what you're going to do.
That's right. So it ends up that Walter decides he's going to go sleep in the den.
Yes.
That they're going to have a trial separation.
And I mean, at that point, I would be in the same position that Maude is. I'm just like, what? No! I don't want to have a trial separation. I want to talk about this.
Yes. So now, are you the type in the relationship that you have to talk it? You have to talk it out. You got to talk it out right then and there.
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm the kind that it's like at some points.
Well,
I don't want to talk.
It
I just want to
depends
be
on
left alone.
It depends heavily on the conversation. It depends heavily on the conversation. Like if we're talking about relationship issues, I want to address them when I am ready to address them. If it has to do with something like frivolous, we can discuss it whenever. It just depends on how much alcohol I've had to drink.
Okay. Fair.
Because if I'm under the influence, it's called a truth serum for a reason, kids. I do not support alcoholism, but I do support open conversations with your partner.
Works for me. So
one of the things I noticed is that when Maude was banging on the very flimsy wall, it was a very flimsy wall. A very cheap
set. So Walter won't come out, and Maude
is basically all by her lonesome, having this inner dialogue, this inner monologue with herself.
Yes.
So she's banging on the wall like, you won't show me the letter.
Yeah, she wants to see that paper.
Yep.
So then she said she's gonna go upstairs.
All right, you have it your way. I'm going upstairs. Walter, I'm back.
Yes. It was like not even like
I would do that.
2-second pause.
I would do that.
I'm back.
I would definitely.
And she's talking to the door. She wants to see the paper, and then she sees he's shoved the paper.
Well,
out
no,
the bottom,
she actually wrote down. Let me read you what I wrote on mine. And she was talking about how he would have cottage cheese stuck in his mustache. Stuck in his teeth.
Stuck in his teeth. The little white teeth.
Yeah,
that is kind of gross.
That's a little disgusting.
Yeah, but I mean, you just tell your partner. You just say, "Oh, honey, you got something in your teeth."
But I mean,
it happens to everybody. With like spinach or broccoli. Leg of lamb.
Maude is coming at this from a very insecure place, and Walter is coming at this from a place of like, my wife is crazy, but I love her because she's crazy.
Exactly.
So we notice. Well, Maude notices that the letter was slipped under the door.
Yes, it was.
So she was like, "Oh, I didn't see that you did that."
Yes.
So she picks it up and she reads, "I love you, Maude. I love you, I love you." And she starts getting a little misty-eyed.
Yes, she's getting misty.
And then by the end it says, "So get off
my back." And while she's reading it, we see that Walter
snuck out the window.
She
he's coming in. Walter, you didn't sneak out the window, did you?
We see him coming in through the front door.
Yep.
So we know he's snuck out of the den.
He snuck out the den.
And as soon as she finished reading the letter, he starts in with Deo.
He starts singing Deo.
He starts in with his Harry Belafonte. And that's when she does that very loving...
A very loving God'll get you for that,
God'll get you for that, Walter.
And, she's smiling, she's all happy, and
she starts singing the Matilda song again.
Yes, and then they start singing softly, and then as they go upstairs, she's shaking her behind. They're obviously going to have... they're going to make the beast with two wings.
Yes.
So at that point, we have the epilogue.
Yes, there was the break, and then we come back, and obviously it's... later in the night. Same night, I'm assuming.
So the way Walter was, it had to have been just after orgasm.
After the loving, I'm still in love with you.
So
little Engelbert Humperdinck.
Oh, we love Engelbert Humperdinck.
They love him at the nursing home. I do quando.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, nothing should surprise you.
Nothing surprises me anymore.
Nothing should surprise you anymore.
I've reached an age where just nothing surprises me.
How could it?
So Chuck is at the door.
Yes.
And Walter opens the door like, what's happening?
Yes.
So Chuck is going on a tirade.
He's complaining about Vivian.
And he's complaining that when Vivian, complains, or when she gets angry, she pouts.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentions how when Vivian pouts, he wants to punch her.
Yeah.
And he then proceeds to punch the couch. Pretty viciously.
And he vividly describes how he wants to punch her in the mouth, knock
out all her teeth, or some of her teeth.
Knock out, the teeth, like every other tooth, So she would look like a
Steinway?
A piano.
A piano.
Yeah. That was...
So...
Yes. You mentioned before we started.
I did mention before we started that I wanted to address this.
You wanted to address that.
During the 60s, 70s, even the 50s, there's sort of this really toxic romantic relationship with spousal abuse.
Well, look at the honeymooners, Ralph. You know,
to the moon, Alice.
To the moon, Alice. Like,
moon,
you know,
Alice.
and like always like, one of these days,
Yeah,
Alice. And,
exactly.
You know,
and
not that we ever saw any.
We never saw any physical violence. There was never any physical violence. But there's definitely this I don't want to use the term. Is romanticizing a word?
Yeah.
So this romanticizing of spousal abuse.
Domestic abuse.
Domestic abuse, yes.
Domestic abuse.
If you are ever in a situation like that, please seek help. That is unfortunately the best advice I can give, because as we've mentioned in, what episode was it? The convention.
Mm-hmm.
It was the convention where Maude and Walter were having that like big altercation towards the end of the episode.
Yes.
You have to make the cognitive decision to get out of that situation.
Right.
And you know, we too can offer. There is help out there. There are shelters. There are clinics. There are people in your corner. Just please, for the love of all that is holy, do not call the police. They will do nothing. They will literally do.
Well, if you are if you are in physical danger, if somebody has a weapon.
That's just it. If they have a weapon, Sometimes they need more proof than that.
Yeah,
and they're just not willing to investigate, because you can only imagine how many calls a police officer gets.
Yeah.
So,
but to bring this into the real world, I
mean,
look at what it's every day we're seeing about the Gabby Petito case.
That's right.
And again, there was you know, as we're finding out, there seems to be that there. Allegedly may have been domestic violence.
Yes. On both sides.
On both sides. Yeah, that seems to be what we're allegedly hearing.
Yes.
On the news.
They still haven't found him.
They still have not found him. At the point that this is going to be released, I don't know if they.
Yeah, we don't know when
we record these ahead of time.
Yes, we do.
But
it's very unfortunate that we sort of lived in that society years ago where it was just okay to physically assault your partner and it'd be like, oh, he loves me. What was the musical? Was it Carousel? I think it was Carousel. His punches felt like kisses. Or his punches were a kiss from whatever. Yes. Just, no! That's incredibly disastrous!
Well, I can assure you, because I lived through it when I was, very young, and there was a number of times my mother called the police on my father. Yes. And the police were just like, well, we can't get this is between a husband and wife. We can't get involved. But, they can't do that now.
They can't.
They can't. I mean, they have to, make sure, at the very least, they have to make sure that one person leaves the premises.
It usually starts with a restraining order.
This is like even before it gets
to that point.
I mean, if the police come into a situation of a domestic dispute, they're going to insist that one person leave the premises. One or both parties may even wind up, being arrested.
Depending on how violent it is.
Depending on, what the violence was or who,
And obviously we're
hit the other person.
Obviously we're talking about this and we're discussing a sitcom, but even in sitcoms this is not something that would be like, take for instance the Designing Women episode. Mm-hmm. That episode of Designing Women, I cannot for the life of me remember, but it was Charlene's best friend who was going through that.
Right.
And, the wife had to make the cognitive decision to take her kids and get out of that situation.
Right.
That was never discussed.
Yeah.
That was never discussed prior to the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the 70s it was just,
yeah.
My husband loves me with his fists.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yes.
So, it really is one of those things that we sort of have to not so much put a microscope on, but put a focus on. Where we're like, this was how things were years ago. Yeah. Like if that's what happened in a relationship, it was just one of those things.
Yes. And coincidentally, because I'm going to bring this around full circle.
Please and thank you.
It really wasn't until Farrah Fawcett did the TV movie The Burning Bed that it really created this national expose on domestic violence.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse. Violence. And that was one of the first movies that we really saw just, how realistic, and how horrific domestic violence really was. And it's a true story. The woman that Farrah Fawcett played was this woman who had for years was being abused by her husband.
Yeah.
And would call the police. The police would come in, and she was like sitting at the kitchen table, like fat lip, blackened eyes, bleeding, and they wouldn't do anything to her husband. She even actually divorced him, but he wouldn't leave. She was doing everything she could legally to get away from the man, and couldn't. Till finally, she couldn't take it anymore while he was, I believe, drunk and asleep. She set his bed on fire and killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is why it's called The Burning Bed. And when she went to
But
trial,
you notice, if that was a situation today, she would be charged with arson.
Oh, yeah, probably.
She would be charged with arson and homicide.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that she, saved her own hide.
Yeah.
And that's the type of justice system we live in today, kids.
Yeah. But she was actually acquitted. When they went to, she was acquitted because they
and then there was
the legal system failed her, and the only thing that she could do to protect her life and the life of her kids was to kill this man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was that other movie with Jennifer Lopez.
Oh yes, which
it's a little melodramatic.
Very unrealistic that a woman is gonna train and become like this, almost like a professional hit woman.
But it was one of her final roles. Did she wasn't she nominated for an Oscar for that movie?
Oh God, I don't think so.
You don't think?
I don't think so.
Or she was nominated for something.
I don't.
Maybe it was a Razzie, and I'm just fantasizing.
But yeah, no, I don't think she was nominated for an Oscar.
But these types of situations will come up more and more frequently as the series continues. As we know, Walter and Maude definitely have a very tumultuous relationship that sort of runs the gamut of emotions.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. As a matter of fact, and it's going to be very difficult for me to watch. In the episode following the next episode that we record, it's a two-parter, and it's basically about Walter's alcoholism. And at the end of the first episode, he physically smacks Maude.
Right.
And it's just one of those things that really, really, really deeply affects me.
Right.
And again, we're going to have this very same conversation where it's we have to acknowledge, while this happened in the 70s, it's still very prevalent today. Like, there is still domestic abuse happening today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very true. So, getting back to the end of the episode, Chuck, he's asking if he can, stay the night in the den.
And that's when Vivian enters.
Maude is like, well, that's a
Maude
problem.
is trying to cover up what's happening.
Yeah. So Vivian comes out of the den. So she apparently, after the fight, she ended up leaving too.
That's right.
But she got to the Finleys before Chuck.
So that, it wasn't after the orgasm. It was probably after Vivian just went to bed.
Right.
So this had to have been at maybe 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah. Why would you be worried about getting back to sleep at that point? I'd be like,
that's it. I'm awake now.
I'm awake now.
I'm going to put on the coffee.
Yeah.
I'll put on the percolator.
Put on the coffee.
Put on the coffee.
So there's something that Chuck says to her that he thought she was going to go
stay at her mother's.
At her mother's.
Oh, no, he wanted her to stay at her mother's.
He wanted her to stay at her mother's.
And Vivian says, that shows how little you listen. My mother's been dead 11 years.
11 years, yes. And that's why he wanted her No, that is why he wanted her to stay with her mother. And they start fighting
and going off into the den to argue.
And
Walter turns to Maude and goes, "Wow, can you believe how much they're arguing?"
Yeah.
And Maude turns to him and is smiling.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Isn't it marvelous?
Yeah.
There really may be hope for them. They're beginning to sound just like us."
Just like us.
And again, it's just that romanticism of domestic violence that really made me uncomfortable with certain parts of that episode.
With today's perspective,
yes,
it's a little cringy,
a little bit.
Yeah,
but I mean,
so let me ask you now.
Go ahead.
Do we think after this episode and Maude saying that there's hope, they sound like us? Do you think there may have been some indecision on the part of the writers whether or not they were going to keep Vivian and Chuck together? Or as what happened was, Vivian and Chuck did split because then they fixed Vivian up with Arthur. I was thinking about that.
It depends heavily on what the parameters of Chuck's contract were. Whether or not they were going to have to hold on to him.
Uh-huh.
I think the problem was, it was one of those situations where it's like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like, because you have Arthur, you have Chuck, you have Vivian, you have Maude, you have Walter, you have Carol. Yeah. Like, you have these 6, and then you have Florida. So you have these 7 characters. Yeah. That's a lot of characters.
Yes. Chuck was almost superfluous.
Yes.
SAT word for the day. Because he was basically, in this episode, serving the same...
he's a plot
role that Arthur normally would, like Walter's.
But Arthur was never physically abusive.
Right.
Arthur was never physical with Vivian, except for the time when Maude tried to set the two of them up. There was a moment, and again, we'll get to this, but it does happen, and I think the episode where Vivian's been like dating, and I think this is after she had her facelift. But again, we'll discuss.
Although she looked great in the episode.
She looked fabulous. When we think about Vivian in Maude's dilemma.
The first time that we saw Vivian, they made her look so.
They grayed her. They made her wrinkled. They grayed her hair.
They took like 20 years off her in this episode.
Did. Yes, they did.
She looked great.
And they decided to write that into the series. They wrote that she had a facelift, that she had her hair colored.
Right.
Even though that was just what Rue McClanahan looked like.
Right.
Where was I going with that? There was right. The only time Arthur was ever physical with Vivian was, Vivian was told by Maude, go with Arthur. Arthur's a doctor. He wouldn't harm a fly. And then Vivian goes to Arthur's house and Arthur's cooking. And they start talking romantic. He starts spouting poetry. Like Vivian is very much like taken with this, and then he goes to grab her. And it is alluded that Arthur was being sexually aggressive with her. And again, we will get to that when the episode comes. But that is the one and only time that Arthur was ever physical with Vivian. But sometimes, all it takes is one time to be like...
True.
All it takes is one time. But yeah, so in the next... So the next... That was... In terms of Chuck, again, too many cooks in the kitchen. We only see Chuck one more time after this episode.
Right.
And it's an episode where, we see Chuck is like newly reformed. He has a beard. He's very distinguished looking. And Maude tries to get with him.
Interesting.
And he's very attracted to Maude. And he's also very attracted to Vivian. So it's just that's a very it's a very interesting episode in and of itself.
Can't wait to see that one.
But yes, so with that,
yes, that's the end of the episode.
That is the end of the episode.
Now, I just want to mention for anyone listening.
Please,
now the next episode is the season.
It is the season finale. The season 1 finale.
The season 1 finale, and we're going to do something very special.
What?
For that episode.
What are we going to do that's very special?
Well, we're still doing our normal podcast, but we're actually going to...
be live!
Well, are we going to be?
We're not going to be
live, but we are recording it on video.
Yes, we're recording it on video.
We are recording it on video. Well, I mean, we'll still be live.
We'll still be live.
We won't be live.
We won't live.
We'll just be live.
We won't be live.
We'll have recorded it live, but we won't be live. There's a difference between live and live.
Well, yes.
Which of course they will be able to watch us
on
our YouTube channel, which is of course is called
"God'll Get You for That, Walter."
Thank you.
I got it right.
Hallelujah.
If you would like to follow us, you can on YouTube at "God'll Get You for That, Walter." If you would like to email us, you can at finleysfriendlyappliances@gmail.com.
Which is also our
Instagram.
Yes.
And you can follow us on Facebook. You know, Facebook and Instagram, they have that little weird blip.
That marriage. Yes, yesterday was the DNS went down or something.
Oh, something happened. On October 4th, 2021.
Did you survive the Facebook blackout?
I didn't give a blast about it.
Where were you when Facebook went down?
Did not give a blast about it. I have a website, and I have a website. My website is thattomcat.com.
Yes.
And you also have a website.
I also have a website, TonyHomeperm.com, and that's
Tony with an I.
Very good. And of course,
I'm learning.
And of course, they can always follow me on Facebook and on my very own YouTube channel.
Yes, which is gaining popularity.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought that people want to see an old drag queen paint her face? But they do. Shocking.
Yes, they do.
Shocking.
They do. Isn't that a marvelous feeling?
I know. Who would have thought?
Listen, there is a market for people out there that want to see people do makeup. It's very therapeutic. Like, there are times when I'm just like, I'm bored. Let's watch somebody do makeup. And then you'll just watch a drag queen do it. And it's just like, oh, how nice. These are tips that I could use.
I keep wanting you to go be like, it's unbelievable. And I'm like, it's not that unbelievable.
You don't get any lemonade. Oh, my goodness. So we thank you again for joining us on another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter, and we'll see you next time, friends.
Bye-bye.
You'll hear us next time, friends.
Bye. And they will see us.
They will see us this time.
They will see us on the next one, yes.
Oh, merciful heavens.
Oh.
Bye-bye for now, friends.
Bye-bye.